Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unfiltered Flow ELSC. I'm Meghann Cook here with Alan Burdette. And today we're switching it up a little bit. We thought it'd be fun to have somebody interview us. And our special guest facilitator today is our former boss, former president of Linde Hydraulics, Mr. John Kumler. Hey, John.
Morning. Good morning. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
It's
So
always nice.
a little bit about me before we start is, I've been retired since the beginning of 22. Started up a little company doing some training gigs for Linde and have kept busy with that, but just enjoying life right now. And I'm pleased to come back and help you guys out here and facilitate a few questions, let your audience come to know you a little better. So with that,
Appreciate it.
let's kick it off. And this is to both of you, and let the lady go first. But how long have you been in the fluid power industry, Meghann?
So I spent 11 and a half years at Linde. Started out in inside sales, worked my way up through after sales manager, regional sales manager, then managed inside sales department. Towards the end of my stint was director of aftermarket and distribution sales.
Okay.
So now that with this, what is that? 14 years almost, I guess. Not quite as long as you two, but I'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
You'll catch
How
up.
about you, Al?
Well, you've known me my entire fluid power career, John. I started at Linde in 1993. Did 5 years there. Left for what I thought was greener pastures, and was gone for 8 years at Parker. Came back to Linde in 2000. When was it? 2006, and retired out of there. And about 6 months after you did in 2022. So about 30 years directly in the fluid power industry. And then when I retired, was a partially responsible for setting up this company. So another 3 years there. So all in all, about 39 years counting the gig here.
Did you
How
say
did
that?
you get into the industry, Alan?
Well, this is my second career. I retired out of the military after 21 years. And I was looking for a job, and I got this job through the newspaper. Nobody gets jobs through the newspaper anymore, but it was an ad in the Cleveland paper that my sister-in-law had sent to me, and I replied to it. Well, the guy who was the president of Linde at that time, he was a West Point graduate, and I was a Naval Academy graduate, and I think he wanted to have a Naval Academy graduate to kick around for a while. So he hired me. So that's how I got into the industry, sort of fell into it.
What about you, John? How did you get in?
I started out in diesel engine technology with Caterpillar tractor back when it was still Caterpillar tractor. They didn't have a job for me anywhere near where my future wife was residing in diesel engines. And the commute from Peoria to Chicago was killing me. So I said, you got to get me into something closer to Chicago. So they said, hey, we can put you in this group in Joliet that basically designs all the hydraulics for Caterpillar machines. And it's just like a diesel engine. It has pistons, top dead center, timing, and compression rates. And I'm like, oh, well, sure, I'm in for that. And that was about 1978, 78. So I started out with them designing pumps and valves at Caterpillar, and then went into the railway industry and had some fluid power work with that and some metallurgical work. Joined Linde and stayed with Linde for 33 years, being president the last 10. So, yeah.
Best time of your life, you got to manage Alan and I.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, Megan, your turn. How did you get into the industry?
I had a baby,
An hydraulic
literally.
baby or what?
Well, so living in Columbus at the time, my husband and I were looking at, moving back to raise with the grandparent, a more local Youngstown area. And I had a recruiter actually reach out to me about the position at Linde. She said, great company, great benefits, one of the best companies I work with to place people, and interviewed with 8 different people at the time. As a matter of fact, 2 rounds of 4 ended with John here. And ended up getting the job in May of 12 and, worked my way up from there. Fell in love with remanufacturing, and that kind of etched my path out at Linde.
Always enjoyed negotiating with Meghann. Well, that's great. So that's kind of the background of how you got into that. In essence, why did you stay? What do you enjoy about not just your job necessarily, but the industry in general?
Wow. Um, for me, it was a couple different things. The people, I fell in love with my coworkers, customers, the applications. I love anything that's big and loud and runs hard, right? So I fell in love with it all the way around, and the people for me made it just I didn't ever want to do anything else, really.
What do you think, Al?
Well, I need to echo what Meghann said, because when you asked it, even before she answered, the thing that came to my mind was the people. And, the people I worked with at Linde, and then the customers. I mean, that was one reason that I got into this gig that we can talk about later, but I just didn't want to abandon that. Made some good friends, a lot of good acquaintances, just did not want to give that up. And the other reason is I like the machinery aspect of it, being able to work on a lot of different projects with different people, different interesting people out there in the industry, and watching those come to fruition, sometimes pretty well and sometimes not so well, as you're well aware of, John. So,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fun.
Challenge.
That's one thing I can say about it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, it certainly could be dynamic from my experience. You could go from everything running fine to a total dumpster fire in a matter of minutes. And because of the way the hydraulics fits into, and pneumatics fits into the industries or the machines, and in if you will, the production chain of that industry, it could be a critical stopping point, and a lot of resources and pressure would come to bear. The predecessor that you referred to, Alan, that hired you, always referred to it as not much different than a military firefight, because you had to keep your cool and you had to keep focused on fixing the problem, not get caught up in the drama, even though the drama was always there. That the people, the dynamics of the applications and the changing world, but also I think the fact that it was different. Every day was different. It wasn't Walter Mitty going to the same job every day and just day in, day out. There was always going to be some excitement or something that needed attention, and needed dealing with that. And that was all the way through the career, whether it was as sales or account management or in an executive position. It was always something. Now, still sticking with the industry, not necessarily recruitment, with your time in the industry, did you see, I wanted to say changes, but I think it's more, have you seen innovation? Because I think a lot of people think of fluid power as kind of a stodgy old boilerplate type industry, from the 20s or something. In your careers, have you seen innovation and change that way?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think now more than ever, controllability, remote monitoring, electrification, it's a whole new world, really. I mean, and things are evolving very fast.
Uh-huh.
So there are a lot more opportunities out there, I think, than people realize. You're right. People think of hydraulics as this old, outdated type of system there, but there's so many new things and so many new opportunities in the field that it's wide open, and there's a boatload of fun to be had all the way around there. Whether you're a pure hydraulics guy or gal, or you're into the automation control side of things, there's a boatload of opportunity there.
I think controls have been tremendous change in controls in my time. I mean, when I first got into it, there were still, big pumps being controlled with levers that you move back and forth. And, all that's changed now. Everything's done electronically for the most part. I mean, there's still a place for that type of control, but in the materials that are used in high pressure stuff is those have changed a lot. Yeah, there's just been a lot of change in the industry in the past 30 years. So, and it's still going on. It's still going on.
It really is. I think the thing that I've seen from a overall picture is the energy consumption has been a big piece of it all. And Lindy was very involved in that, of course, with fuel consumption on the machines that we were on. But I think in general, the industry is adapting to this idea of let's be as efficient as possible. And we saw that going from gear pumps to piston pumps to load sensing systems and things like that. And now electronic load sensing in order to maintain the most efficient systems as possible. So it is a very innovative industry, I think, and I think the customers are driving that as much as the companies. You both worked in the industry as we've established here, and now you've both transitioned into this recruitment role in the industry. How did that come about?
Alan, you want to take that or you want me to take it?
Well, I can speak to part of it, Meghann, but you're going to have to speak to part of it as well, the specifics. You know, we both wound up at Linde as part of hiring teams. We saw a lot of resumes come across our desks from different recruiters. And it wasn't the fact that those recruiters were doing a bad job. It's just that I don't think they really understood what our needs are or what the needs were in our industry, especially our segment of the industry. And you would wind up wasting a lot of time going through a lot of resumes of people that were obviously not qualified for what we were looking for. So as this went on and on, we felt that we could probably do a pretty good job knowing the industry as we did of serving the industry in a recruitment role because we felt we knew what the industry wanted and needed because of our background. Specifically how we got into that, I'll let Meghann sort of address that.
Certainly what Alan said, the need was definitely there. For me personally, it was just time for a change for me, career-wise, multitude of different things. And this was a way to continue to be involved in the industry, still, meet people and work with customers and candidates and that sort of thing. So still be dialed into the industry I love, just in a different capacity there.
Yeah, makes sense. It really made a lot of sense when I learned of EastLake. I said, well, that makes perfect sense.
Another thing for me was I just didn't want to quit working. I mean, I'm an old guy and I just didn't want to sit down and not do anything. So when the opportunity presented itself, I sort of thought about it for 10 seconds and said, sure. So
Oh, don't let him fool you. He just didn't want to stop working with me. That's what it was.
Yeah, those trips were legendary.
We don't know what you're referring to.
This
what
is
trips?
total
What
laughs and
trips?
laughs of yeah. I signed off on the expense report. Back to the subject at hand. Cut. Take two. The
Edit.
all industries are challenged by world events and everything else. What do you see as your biggest challenge in the fluid power space for?
Certainly, the aging out that's going on, that has been and is going to the next decade. Finding true, and this is sales engineer side specifically, finding very adept sales engineers, specifically on the hydraulic side, is definitely a challenge. Where Alan and I are lucky there with the contacts we made in the industry. We can ask around, and we have a very good network of people that way. But certainly new blood, looking for new blood to come in. Some of these younger guys and gals coming out of some of these programs that the NFPA supports, as an example, Cal Poly and Purdue, to name a couple, where they really expose some of these younger folks to hydraulics and fluid dynamics and that sort of thing, and get them kind of excited about it and the opportunities in the industry. Definitely need more of that push from the backside to get some of these younger folks in there. And whether it's, they go into an engineering role or they migrate into a sales role, either way, certainly that part of it at this point is challenging for those roles.
Yeah.
it's a bit different on the control side of the situation there. There's, quite a few more folks on that control side and do the AAS and mechatronics as opposed to hydraulics. And, honestly, I think some of the programs that were true hydraulics programs in the past have migrated more so to that controls mechatronics as well, just because there's so many folks that are interested in that when they start these programs. So not that that's good or bad, but I think there's a little bit lost there for the true hydraulics folks coming out of those 2-year degrees.
When you interview or you have candidates come that are new to the industry that maybe haven't had a job before, do they have a good knowledge base of the industry? Do they realize they can make a good career in the industry, or is that lacking?
No, the ones that reach out, the green new grads, or even the juniors that have been in the industry for a year and a half or so, the ones that I have spoken to or that typically reach out have found that they love hydraulics or they love fluid power, and that they know that this is the career path they want to go down, and not necessarily defined as far as engineering versus sales versus operations at that point, but they do know that they want to be in the industry in some capacity. As far as knowledge base, that's where it comes in with training programs with distribution and manufacturing. Coming out of school, as we all know, you're not going to have that technical capability to jump right into an AE role somewhere or a sales engineer role, obviously.
Yeah.
So having a very good training program in place for these folks that come out of school, I think, is paramount.
By the OEMs or the distributors.
Pardon?
Training programs at the distributors or the OEMs.
Correct.
Were they?
Correct. Right. And, I think that's good and bad. If you land in a situation where you have an excellent training program and you have great mentors and that sort of thing, I think it sets you on a great path that way. But, there are also programs that can leave folks hanging there a little bit. If you don't have that mentorship and solid training background and a company culture that really invests in, younger folks and training them up. I think that could also ruin you to the industry as well, potentially.
But as it would anywhere, right?
Hmm. Did you fall asleep, buddy? You still there?
Where are we? What was the question?
Hasn't changed at all.
No. I have to call him multiple times throughout the day to make sure he's awake.
Sounds like one of my staff meeting.
No, what Meghann said to start off with about the industry aging out. I don't call it aging out for obvious reasons. I just call it leaving the industry is what I call it. There's a tremendous amount of experience leaving the industry. And when we talk a lot to clients, potential clients, I think maybe I'm wrong here, but I think sometimes the expectations of getting someone to replace that experience and come online very quickly is a little unrealistic. If you're hiring a technical salesperson, it takes not months but years to bring them up to speed with the technical product. We know that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And Megan's right. The guys that like the fluid power industry, the younger guys that like the fluid power industry do realize that there's a good living to be made here. I just don't think there's nearly the number out there to replace the experience that's being lost. We need to get more of them. And schools like MSOE and NFPA, they do a good job of making people aware of the situation. But we need more. Yeah, we need more like that. Was that the question?
What kind of changes do you see coming, or is it stagnant in the recruitment side?
I think AI is a big deal on that side. Truly, we're lucky enough we got involved with a CRM, ATS system initially that relied heavily on the AI side, and that's a huge help. I think things are moving to more of a transactional approach, I guess, as opposed to a personal approach. With LinkedIn and job boards, a lot of these companies are getting hundreds to thousands of resumes, and how they weed them out, I'm not sure. And I think a lot of talent is missed that way. And there's a lot of candidates. I've heard it the past few months, quite frequently actually, that, they've applied to 10, 15, 20 jobs and they hear nothing back from their applications.
Yeah.
It's very disheartening for those that are looking, especially those that are talented and, would be a good fit somewhere. For some reason, they're just being weeded out in this process. So something that we focus on this side is a personal approach to that as opposed to transactional. As I alluded to previously, we love the industry because of the people. Alan and I both do. And we take that seriously. We enjoy talking to the candidates and
Sure.
understanding their background and, what they're going through and what their situation is, as well as on the client side, what they need, what they're looking for, what shortfalls they see, what they're seeing in the industry as far as applicants, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think a personal approach now is needed more so than probably in the past. There's too much out there. There's too many platforms where you can submit a resume and things of that nature. It's diminishing, I think, from my perspective on the personal side.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we just talked about it earlier today. I mean, it's transactional and it's almost like a mass production type thing now. We get inundated every day with I get 2 or 3 emails a day, to services that provide resumes, wanting you to subscribe, people that provide recruiting training for different aspects of recruiting. It's getting to be a real business, and I think in that process, it's going to lose a lot of the personal touch or has lost a lot of the personal touch. And I think it's really important to keep that, especially when you're concentrating on a specific segment and your small company.
Again, you've got a generational change too, right? The younger candidates coming out of school are much more, social media and technical
They
savvy to
are,
those types of things.
they
And
are, but
that's the way they go, the way they buy and the way they transact their life, right? But how do you transition that to a company that's established?
I think that those people also appreciate the personal touch too. And, if you provide that, then they're going to pay dividends for you down the road.
That's it. I mean, we always considered the resume was very two-dimensional. It was just a flat piece of paper. You had to use that to find the people you wanted to talk to. And I think, as Meghann referred to, she had 2 rounds of 4 people each. We had people from every department talking to candidates in every department, for every department, engineers to inside sales to accounting, engineers talking to accountants and so forth, just to get a feel for the person and the personality and especially we were a fairly small team. Do they fit? You need that interaction. You can't do that. You can't do that automatically. You can, but you may not be successful. But in any case, well, that kind of wraps up the number of questions that I had. Is there anything that you guys would like to wrap up with, your perspective of this little interview?
No, I'm glad you joined us. It's great.
Thanks, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
You know us probably better than anybody when it comes to working relationship, right? We were a family
We
back in
we
the day, from you down to
yeah, we did tear up some dirt in our day, but it's I guess I would just wrap up for the folks that look at this as it's a rewarding industry. It's dynamic and as you mentioned, a lot of really good people in this industry,
Sure.
and quite a few characters. Quite a few characters.
that's what makes it fun. It'd be boring.
It does. Well, it's been my pleasure to ask you guys some questions and get your spin on things. So good luck with everything that EastLake does, and take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John.
Good to see you.